Time to talk about the Temple Owls. What should Boston College be worried about when they head down to Philadelphia this weekend to take on Temple? We're going to talk about that and many more things on today's Locked On Boston College.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black. I am so excited to talk to you guys all today. It is Thursday. We're a couple days away from kickoff between Boston College and Temple on the road in Philadelphia, a noon kickoff on ESPNU. On today's show, we're going to look at their team, and I'm going to talk a little bit about a specific aspect of the Temple Owls that we need to be worried about. I'm also going to look at the BC injury situation and talk a little bit about how there's a couple other players that are still out, and I have some thoughts about Marcus Valdez and Jaelen Gill. You want to hear about that. And finally, I'm going to talk some football recruiting news. So make sure that you are subscribed and ready to lock in on some great Boston College content today. So first of all, let's get into the Temple talk. Now, one of the things they say on Locked On Network is to try to get a opposing writer or podcaster to come in and talk about Temple. I gotta tell you, with the Phil Jurkovec news this week, I'm gonna be totally honest. I made no effort to find a Temple writer. They were hard. I don't know anyone, so I was like, and I know quite a few writers. Believe me, I get the rest of the season covered, but I couldn't find you a Temple one. So I apologize, but there's enough that we can talk about on our own. The first thing I wanted to talk about is looking at Temple and thinking about what it is about this team that could be a problem for Boston College. Boston College is a 16-point favorite heading into this game on the road, and that line came out probably after Vegas had an idea that BC would be without Phil Drakovic. Now, heading into this game, BC is going to face a two-headed beast at quarterback. Facing Temple, they're going to probably have one or two quarterbacks in. First of all, they're going to probably have DeJuan Mathis. He's listed as their starting quarterback. He's a mobile quarterback. He's a transfer from Georgia who got hurt last week in the Akron game. He's listed as day-to-day with a foot injury, but he could still play. Getting out of Georgia for Mathis was the greatest thing that possibly could have happened for him. Last year, after JT Daniels didn't play very much, Mathis came in, I think it was the Florida game I was watching, and he looked completely overwhelmed. But that was against Florida, who ended up winning, coming in second in the SEC last year. This year, he's at Temple. The expectations have to be a little bit lower. Look at his stats, and they kind of still look like he's struggling. I mean, he's 8 for 24 for 148 yards and 1 interception. That's not going to cut it. So when I look at this, I say, they're probably going to start with Mathis. He is a kid that's played a little bit more. He's got the experience under his belt. But don't be surprised if the Owls go with Justin Lynch, their other freshman quarterback, who looked good, I thought, against Akron. He threw for 248 yards this season, including 255 yards, against Akron with 2 touchdowns. Now, if they start Mathis, don't be surprised if they say, forget this. We're going to go with Lynch because he could do some things. He could also rush the ball. He's got a rushing touchdown as well. So BC is going to have to prepare for 2 different quarterbacks here. Mathis, who can run the ball. Mathis has legs. And Lynch, who can run it a little bit, but Lynch has a good arm. And what's scary about Temple, and I know you're thinking Temple, this is a team that's pretty bad at it. And, they scored 45 points their last game, but again, it was against Akron. They let up 28 points against Akron and 61 against Rutgers. So, this is a team that it hasn't really done a whole lot, but they've got some really talented wide receivers. One that I really like is Randall Jones, who Jeff Hafley mentioned during his press conference this week as a potential NFL wide receiver. And he's a big kid. He's a big kid who's got 8 catches for 208 yards and 2 touchdowns. He is 6 feet tall, so he's not huge, but he's a big, fast kid from Miami, and I love the way he plays. So and they've got another wide receiver as well at Jaelen Blue, who has 6 passes for 21 yards. And, another kid that could really do a lot for the Owls. So that's like areas of concern. You look at this offense and you see what BC's defense did last week and against UMass. They let up 28 points against UMass. They got to clean some stuff up. I said this all along. Like, the defense can play better, and I don't know what they're going to do in terms of the players, in the scheme for this game. But I think BC can still do some things. And you look at Temple's defense, and this was their Achilles heel last year. And their defense, I mean, they let up 61 points to Rutgers. Rutgers, who struggled to put up points against Syracuse this week. This is a team that can't really play much defense. So even with with Dennis Grosel in the game, I expect Boston College to put up a lot of points against this defense. So there's your area of concern, your area of area to attack. I think Boston College should be okay, even if they let up some points. You just want to hope. I think the thing you want to watch for is how BC plays against this offense, because they got some. It's probably the first time this year that you're playing against a team with some playmakers. No offense to UMass, didn't really have many, but I think Temple does have a couple. I have a question for you. Do you like this podcast? I'm sure you're probably shaking yes, because you're listening to it still. If you do, you need to check out Locked On ACC. It's hosted by Candace Cooper, and it's joined by assistant co-hosts, that from all around the Locked On ACC platform. You have me. You have the Drizzy Drake from Florida State. You have Kenton Gibbs from NC State, who used to play for the NC State Wolfpack. You got to check out some of these podcasts. There's some really great ones out there. But on Locked On ACC, we all join Candace and we talk about ACC football. I do a power poll every week, and I can always get Candace to crack up because I get into some things about some of the teams that we play against, and you're going to want to check that out. So check out Locked On ACC wherever you get your podcasts. Now, let's chat a little bit about Rock Auto. Rock Auto is a family business that's been serving customers for over 20 years. Why spend 30, 50, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership when you can head over to rockauto.com and save? Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you could need, from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today and find the solution for your auto parts needs. And when you do, write Locked On in their How'd You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black here. So before we get into the segment, I need to explain. Some of you might be listening, hoping that you would have heard CJ Clinkscales. There was a little miscommunication on the date. I have a guy that's kind of helping me connect with some of these recruits. CJ had practice a little later than we expected today, so I couldn't get him on. I'm going to be recording with him tomorrow, hopefully, and then we'll have that podcast out for you next week. So hopefully you get to hear running back CJ Clinkscales, who is a committed Boston College running back from Georgia. You'll want to hear what he has to say about Jeff Hafley and the staff. Now, we're talking about Saturday's game. It's a game against the Temple Owls, the 2-0 BC Eagles against the 1-1 Temple Owls, a 15.5 point spread. It's a game that you could find on ESPNU. We talked in the first segment about what are some of the things about the Owls that, you want to take serious if you're a Boston College fan. Like, maybe the BC will have some problems with X and Y. But there's a few other things that come up when we're talking about this game. And one of them is injuries. It's been the thing we've been talking about all week on this podcast, right? Phil Jurkovec is out. We know he hurt his hand or his wrist. He had surgery. He's gone, and it looks like he's done for the season. However, there's other injuries to talk about as well. We know Aaron Boumerhi is out. He is done for the year. He has a hip injury on the same hip he hurt already when he was with Temple a couple of years ago. That's a bummer. It sounds like his career probably is done. I mean, at this point, he's probably not going to come back. I don't think he can. And, he's out of eligibility, and I just can't see him getting drafted. I don't think he has a long enough leg to do that. And to be a kicker to get drafted to the NFL, you got to do quite a lot. I don't think he's gotten to that level yet. So he's out. But there's a few other injuries that we really haven't talked about. And two of the big ones are Marcus Valdez and Jaelen Gill. And so Valdez has a hand injury, and Jaelen Gill has a foot injury. At practice today, wide receiver Jaelen Gill, Jeff Hafley said was the first time he had the boot off, and he was actually able to run. Now, that doesn't mean he was practicing with his team. That means he was just able to run. That should give you a better sense of where Jaelen Gill is at. Will he be back for the Temple game? Absolutely not. Should he be? No, BC doesn't need Jaelen Gill for this game. And they would I'm sure, much rather have him healthy for some of those ACC games. So getting him, moving and going, perfect. That's exactly where he should be. I don't know what the injury is. They don't ever tell us. But when you're at this point, you do not want to push it so that for a meaningless game like Temple, when you could wait and get him ready for, Clemson in 2 weeks or NC State in 3 weeks. I don't know where he's at, but he's one guy I don't think they need it. They have Jaden Williams, they have Zay Flowers, they have Kobe White, they have CJ Lewis. You've seen all these guys playing at wide receiver. It'd be nice to have Jaelen Gill back, but you don't need him. And so I think it's perfect. I think it's great to see that he's getting on the right track. And it's great to see that Hafley's saying, he's going to be back at some point, but we don't know when. And he said soon, excuse me. He said, well, he'll be back soon. So, but I think they haven't ruled him out yet. I think he's out. And I would be pretty surprised to see Jaelen Gill on the field on Saturday. In addition, Marcus Valdez. Now, this was a tricky one. I was talking to Mitch Wolf on we text a lot. And he's my site writer, and we love talking BC sports. So I was talking to him back and forth, and I said to him, it'd be nice to have Marcus Valdez back, and he pushed back, and I like a little disagreement here. And he said, oh, they don't need him, and I think there's a point to that. Marcus Valdez is much more, I think, at this point, more important than what you need with Gill. Valdez provides you stability on that defensive line when you don't have a lot of established depth. You have Brandon Barlow and Shataz Salah, and that's kind of it. Then you're putting out Donovan Azaraku, you're putting out Nito Ekpala, Ty Clemens. These are all freshmen. You need Valdez as the third guy is good. And, Mitch was saying to me, don't play him right away. You could still beat Temple without Marcus Valdez. However, he said, as well, and I agree, this is where I'm kind of at. Maybe Valdez doesn't start. Maybe he's kind of plays that Max Roberts pass rusher role and gets limited snaps. So, he comes in when it's third and long and you need a pass rusher in there. That might be the role. The more I think about it, though, I'm not sure where he's at, but I'm guessing they keep him out, too. Again, if you could win this game without putting Jaelen Gill out there, without playing Marcus Valdez, you do it because you don't need to rush them back and risk re-injury or playing them at 75% when you need them later in the season. So I think both Gill and Valdez probably won't play, and that's okay. And maybe Valdez does play, but I'm guessing he doesn't. And finally, the other injury report is people have been asking, and this is something that's not that uncommon to understand, but Deion Jones, I know he's working his way back. I'm not sure when he'll be back. He had a knee injury. He hurt it against UVA last year in the season finale against the Cavaliers. And Jeff Hafley, the last time we had talked to him about it, said that, he's working his way back. He was the Scout Player of the Week a few weeks ago, which strikes me as he's getting there. He's probably right on the cusp of being ready, but I don't expect him to be back for this game either. He could be a guy that you might see against Mizzou, against Clemson, but, I think he's a few weeks away as well. So the injury report, you're seeing where it's at, but I'm telling you right now, you have enough talent on the 2 deep to rest these guys and not have to rush them back. Do you agree with me? Disagree with me? Hit me up on Locked On BC. I know a lot of you guys love to disagree with me, and I love a good argument, so check me out on Locked On BC. Now, in a moment, the NCAA makes an interesting move, and I want to talk a little bit about their ramifications and where Boston College may sit in all of this. Guys, I want to chat with you about sweat block. I know it's not the most fun thing to talk about. One of them, it's excessive sweating. It's gross, right? You're sweating through your t-shirts for no reasons. It's embarrassing, and as I just said, it's gross. Some of you know that I personally have dealt with this when I speak in public. I can't help but sweat through my shirts. Now listen, I know this isn't life and death, and there are much worse problems in the world, but let's be honest. It feels like life and death, and it's important when you're in that moment. And that's why I use Sweat Block antiperspirant wipes. Sweat Block is stronger and more effective than most clinical antiperspirants. You simply apply it at night before bedtime, go to bed, and then boom, next morning you wake up, wash, and go about your day without worrying about sweat. Guaranteed. I know this sounds too good to be true, but I literally only have to use Sweat Block once or twice a week, and it helps me keep dry all the time. No more picking out my shirts based on which one will hide sweat better. If you or someone you know is living with this, you have to check out Sweat Block. Get it today for 20% off at sweatblock.com or with promo code LOCKEDON. or at Amazon or CVS. We're back and better than ever. All eyes are on the gridiron as teams are back on to start another football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. With a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests, BetOnline.ag continues to be the number one source for everything football. Head over to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 100% welcome bonus. That's double your initial deposit just for signing up. Don't forget to use promo code LOCKEDON. And from football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of the amazing offers available for the 21 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, so make sure to head on over to their site and use BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. This is Locked On Boston College. On tomorrow's show, we will have Eric Hofstas on, who will give us his preview of the Temple game. We'll go over betting lines around the ACC and talk everything college football. You're going to want to check out that episode. Now, on Wednesday, I reported on BC Bulletin, following up on Ross Dellinger's report on Sports Illustrated about the NCAA approving a new rule that would allow college football teams to increase their yearly scholarship pool to 32 for the 2022 season. This would be a one-year exception, meaning that teams can only do this just for the season. However, there was some caveats that came up with this rule. They were doing this mainly because of the transfer portal. If you remember, there were like 1,400 players in college football that entered the transfer portal, and it hit Boston College really hard. They had 15 guys enter the transfer portal. They ended up bringing back about 7 from other schools, but that's still a net loss of 7. Now, with this rule, though, teams can try to pad that loss by getting true freshmen. Now, the thought behind all of this was that the NCAA wants teams to be able to still attract freshmen and not be pushed out by all these transfers. Some of this has to do with name, image, and likeness. There's a lot of different factors that go into this, but this isn't a podcast about the NCAA. This is a podcast about Boston College, so I had some real thoughts about this. Well, first of all, I have to say right off the bat, I talk to loads of people about Boston College recruiting, whether it's guys on the staff, recruits. I get a good sense of where they're at, but I haven't asked anyone about this rule yet. And Boston College probably wouldn't answer me if I asked them, but given some of the conversations, I can tell you kind of where I think they're at. Now, Boston College last year took a huge class. They took a 25-man class. They're at 22 right now. Now, if they were to go to get a bigger class this year, say they take advantage of this extra bumper of true freshmen and go to 32, how would that impact them moving forward? They couldn't take a bigger class in 2023. So they maybe in 2023, they're looking at like, hey, there's a ton of local kids. They get the 3 kids from Catholic Memorial. They want to look at Samuel Okakalala from Somerville. They got a lot of guys that maybe they really want. And they don't want to pigeonhole themselves in and only say, oh, wow, we only can take 18 because we took 32 last year. So there's a possibility that this new rule, which people are like, oh, this is really cool, may not impact Boston College at all. But there is the possibility of one thing, and this is where I think might end up happening with the Eagles. So, they're probably not going to go say, oh, I'm going to take 32 recruits for this class. Just don't see that happening. However, say maybe there's 2 or 3 guys that are available, and they like them all, and hey, they all want to commit to BC. But maybe to hit 25, they would only be able to take 1 or 2. Now they get that flexibility, and they can say, you know what, I'm going to take both of you because they can do it. This gives them that little flexibility. So maybe they'll just take 1 or 2. Maybe they'll have a class of 27 or 28. I don't think that's the bad idea, and that gets you some more true freshmen because I do like this idea that they're saying in here. Everyone is really worried, and rightfully so, that the transfer portal is going to completely nuke college football. That, players are just going to say, hey, I'm going to go play for Alabama because they need a running back, and I'm at, Boston College. I'm going to go there and try to win a national championship. This should reward getting true freshmen because you're getting some guys that you can build. And for a program like Boston College, it's not a bad thing, right? Especially now that they've gotten some of their players that were Steve Adazio guys and sent them off to other schools where maybe they would be a better fit. So we're going to wrap up our podcast here. This, again, Locked On Boston College is a 20 to 30-minute podcast. We were supposed to have CJ Klingscales in today. We didn't, so that's okay. We had other things that we could talk about, but we're going to wrap it out at a nice solid 20. If you like our podcast, I have a question and a suggestion for all of you. Head on over to Apple iTunes, hit that subscribe button, and give us a 5-star review. Then write a quick little review and say, hey, AJ's a great Boston College podcast, a great Boston College, whatever you want to say. It helps us tremendously. Do that. And the second request is to head on over to youtube.com and find Locked On Boston College. Hit the subscribe button there as well. Again, the more people that see subscription, so we're like 2 away from 100. I would love to get to 100 before the Temple game. The more people that see it, the more they're like, oh, this is a really great site. This has got let's check that out. And that will help build Locked On Boston College. Some of you have been asking, like, how do I help? That would be the biggest thing you could do. Head on over to YouTube, hit subscribe. Head on over to Apple iTunes, hit subscribe, 5-star review and a review. It'll take you 10 seconds, 20 seconds. You'll be done, and you'll feel great because you helped AJ. So thank you all. If you want to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Twitter at AJBlack_BC. I got my blue check back. It was like, I hate like self-bragging, but I will here a little bit. I got it removed for something. I don't even know what happened. It said like they accidentally verified me when they shouldn't have. Then I tried reaching out to Twitter, didn't get any answer back because they don't have any customer service, which is whatever. And then I reapplied again this week and they're like, yep. So cross your fingers they don't take it away a second time, because I didn't do anything. It just was like gone. So you can find me on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook at Boston College SI, and you know where to find us on all the social medias. Thank you all for listening. We're having a huge week here at Locked On Boston College, and it's because of you. It makes me excited to do this, and I really appreciate you all. Thank you all, and I will see you all again for Friday's show, where you'll get your predictions, analysis, and everything you need for the Temple Boston College game. We'll see you all then. Take care and stay well.